Hello and welcome to Sudoku. You might have heard a lot of fuzz around distributed systems. What is a distributed system? What does it have to do with system design? Why it is so complicated to understand? So here is my attempt to simplify it and just bring to you the fundamental concepts of what is a distributed system, why is it needed in today's world, and how can you understand how distributed systems work or what actually comprises of distributed systems so that it becomes easier for you to not only use them but also build them someday if you get a chance to do so. So let's get started. Just imagine that you have a use case to build two APIs of getting the value for a key and setting a key value pair. Basically, you have to build a very fundamental key value service, and the requirement is just to store like 1,000, 2,000 keys, or maybe let's say 5,000 keys. You can very easily build that microservice, build two APIs. You can utilize the in-memory database of the instance on which you're going to deploy your service, and you can very easily store this data. Let's say if the key value size that has to be stored is around 1 MB and the RAM that you have is around 16 GB, you might be able to build a system which can allow you to store roughly 16,000 keys. So all is good till here. This is fine, right? But what happens if the number of users increase and you have to support more keys than 16,000? In that case, the immediate solution that you have is that you can increase the RAM of that particular instance. You can scale up that instance. As we have learned in previous videos as well, you can do something which is known as vertical scaling. If you increase the RAM from 16 to 32 GB, it can help you store more keys. Not exactly the double of it, but yeah, you can still store something around 32,000 key value pairs. You would be serving these keys, or you will be allowing the users to set and get these keys. Your system might require some more compute. It might become slow, but you can still manage this. Now, what happens when this particular number of users increases? Let's say from some 100 users you go to 1,000 or 10,000 or like even more than that. What happens in that case is the requirement for storage of number of keys increases. In some cases, the size of key value pair that you allow to be stored, like 1 MB, it can increase to 500 MB or 1 GB. So basically your one machine that you had is not sufficient anymore to meet the ever increasing growth of your users. So what happens in this case is that you harness the power of multiple machines. Instead of having just one machine to handle all this, you can bring in multiple machines. Let's say that you can bring in 3 different machines, and each machine has the capacity to, let's say, store 16,000 key value pairs. You can store those 16K pairs in every machine. You can basically use 3 machines and it will basically allow you to store your 40,000 key value pairs, right? So you can just increase your number of machines, and instead of one machine now storing 16,000 key value pairs, you now have 3 machines and you can very easily store your 40,000 key value pairs. So you still meet the demands of your users, right? This is how you go forward. But what happens? There's a problem in this case. Let's say your machine number 2 goes down. Now what would happen is the key value pairs from 1 to 16K and the key value pairs from 32,000 to 40K are still being served. But the 16,000 key value pairs which were stored on machine number 2 are no longer accessible. So some of your users get impacted. Your system is still okay because it is partially failing, but it is still failing, right? And you don't want that to happen. You don't want to impact these users. So as you know, the answer would be that you will have to bring redundancy into the system. You have to replicate this data so that you can serve your users even in case one of the machine goes down. So what happens is you bring in more machines. You now bring 5 machines, and now every machine is storing 16,000 key value pairs, but it is storing copies. So first machine is storing 8,000 key value pairs, 1 to 8K, and another machine is storing a copy of those 8,000 keys. And this happens, as you can see from the visualization, that every machine still have 16,000 key value pairs, but at the same time there are 2 copies of every key value pair. So in total you store 80,000 key value pairs, and all of them are replicated twice. So what happens in this case is, let's say if machine 2 goes down, still the key value pairs which are stored in machine 2 are their copies available in another 2 machines, and hence in case of that machine going down, you still are able to serve your users. So this is what is called as fault tolerance, and that is brought into the picture by introducing redundancy into the system or replication into the system. So this is one way to handle the ever increasing demand. Now one thing to note here is that while you can have this kind of partition data where your one machine is storing one particular partition of your data, not all the data, and it is replicated across different machines, it is also possible to even bring in heavier machines, and you can have all the 40,000 key value pairs stored in one machine, but they're replicated twice, and there are like 2 copies of it. They all are on different machines. This is an approach to handle similar use case by not partitioning your data. The previous case that I showed you here you have partitioned your data, but it is also possible to store this data in multiple machines and have the property of of redundancy and high availability by replicating the whole data across multiple machines. Now, the important thing to note here is that instead of serving all your data through one machine, you brought multiple machines into the picture. They are communicating with each other. They are storing the multiple copies of your data, and you're still able to serve the users who just want to have the operations of setting and getting key value pairs. So this essentially is a distributed system where the responsibility of handling these key value pairs was distributed among multiple machines rather than one machine, because one machine was not able to do it. What happened by introducing multiple machines? You have better availability, you can serve more users, you can store more data. And the best part is that even though you have 4, 5 or 10 machines handling these thousands of key value pairs, for the user it still seems that it's just one machine, or like one system operating on it. That's why it is called a distributed system. For a user's eye, it seems just one system, but behind the scenes there are a lot of machines, or there are a lot of nodes which are connected over the network, which are exchanging messages with each other, which are replicating or partitioning your data, keeping multiple copies of your data so that the user operations don't get interrupted. This essentially is a distributed system. Now, we have barely scratched the surface of distributed systems. It is very easy to say the machines send messages to each other and they replicate the data and they keep the copy of the data. Whereas in real life, it is really, really difficult in order to maintain all these operations and to implement such systems which can handle these operations. But let's at least try to understand the basics of it. In any distributed system, there will be partition data or non-partition data, as we understood. There will always be multiple copies of data, and the communication between different nodes of data is handled through leaders. There can be distributed systems where there is a single leader. There are also some distributed systems where there are multiple leaders, and there are also distributed systems where there are no leaders at all, and all the nodes can act as certain leaders for certain partitions. Kafka is one example for that, but we will get into that later. Let's first try to understand that what happens when there is a single leader in the system, and what is the role and responsibility of a leader. Let's just take for an example, our requirement was to handle just 16,000 key value pairs, but we are using 5 machines in order to serve those 16,000 key value pairs. That means that we have 5 copies of this data, and there is one machine which is going to be a leader. The responsibility of the leader machine is whenever a new entry for a new key value pair comes, it is the responsibility of the leader to replicate that value across all different machines. So all the writes in this case, all the write request or setting the key value pair request goes to the leader, and then leader takes care of sending all this data to all the replicas. If the requirement is to send it to all the replicas, which is also known as strong consistency, where it will send the request to all the replicas will confirm to it that yes, we have now inserted this new key, and then it will respond to the user, okay, your operation is complete. And then when the chance comes to read about this data, like to fetch the values of the keys that you have sent, those read requests can either go to leader or they can go to any other machine, because it is a strong consistency model. Out of the 5 machines, any machine can serve the request of reading the keys, because the leader has already ensured that all the copies have been sent to all the replicas and it is up to date all the time. This happens when there is a single leader and the data is non-partitioned. The copy of the data is same across all different nodes. Now, what happens when there is a multiple leader setup and also the data is partitioned? This kind of setup is usually required when the volume of data is huge. It is impossible to keep all the data in one machine, and that's when it is partitioned. In that case, there can be multiple leaders in the system. So what happens is the request for writing a key or inserting a new key can go to a certain leader depending on the partition where that particular key need to belong to, or it can go to one of the 2 leaders, and leaders will make sure that okay, this request belongs to node number 3 or this request belongs to node number 4. This is where the concepts like consistent hashing come into the picture, where it has to be decided where should a particular request be routed to. So that's how the request is routed to different partitions, and then the data is replicated depending on different replication factors. When it comes to reading the request, the reads are served again through different partitions, because your data might not be available in all the machines in the system. It might be available in particular 2 or 3 or n number of instances, and through the key you would know where this request should be routed in order to fetch the data from. So this happens in case of multiple leader setup and partition data setup. As you can see, the benefit of this kind of systems is that as your volume of data grows, or the volume of your reads grow, or volume of your writes grow, or your user base just increases, you can easily introduce more machines or more nodes into this system, and you can scale your systems. Let's say if the requirement of your user grows to 10 million users, and they want to set more keys, or they want to read more keys, or they just want to store more number of keys, you can easily introduce more machines into the system and handle the scale. At the same time, if the scale reduces, there is a closure somewhere, or let's say your system was operating in multiple different cities and one city gets closes, you had a partition data for a one particular city, you can easily close it and you can scale back your system down, and it helps with costs as well. If we are to take examples of distributed systems, like internet is the biggest distributed system, as you can see. A lot of companies use microservices architecture, which is also a distributed system. But if we are to talk about the biggest, or the most stable, famous distributed systems, it's companies like Twitter or Facebook or Google Drive, etc. If we are to talk about distributed databases, then you have the examples of Amazon's DynamoDB or Cassandra or Kafka for a messaging platform, also as examples of distributed system, which have this setup of multiple nodes deployed across different locations working together in order to fulfill user operations without user realizing that how much work is going behind the curtains on this. So this was a brief introduction to distributed systems. Again, we have just scratched the surface of it. We have to talk about things like leader election, how leader election happens, how replication happens, how machines communicate with each other. That is where, like different things like partition tolerance, fault tolerance, redundancy, etc. come into the picture. We'll get into those topics. In the meantime, if you have any questions, please feel free to leave them as comments in the comment section. We will come back with more content like this. Till then, take care. See you in the next video.